Okay. Why does this keep saying it's offline? So, all right, hold on a second. Okay, hold on, because I think I'm seeing that it's on some places and maybe not on for you guys in nope. All right, I don't really know what's going on here. Hold on one sec. Okay, so it's showing everything, but it's just not playing everything. Let's see. I mean, this screen is showing what I have, but it's just not showing that it's here. Oh, sweet. So you can hear me. Oh, awesome. Fantastic. I'm so happy. I thought it was broken. This whole time I thought it was broken. Again, Mercury retrograde at her finest. I swear to the gods. Holy fuck. Okay. Alright, yes. So you guys can only see my picture right now because I don't have a webcam. So you can't see me. And also, if you would have seen my Instagram live, you would have seen what my face looks like. And I'm going to tell you right now, while I think that I'm very pretty and very beautiful, the face that I had does not really put that forward. So we're going to go with something even more beautiful, which is my drawing. And we're going to change it. Don't worry. Really? Oh my God. I thought you guys couldn't hear me at all because I have the, I was going through the service. It's a whole much more elaborate setup than I thought there was going to be. And I was going through the whole thing and it was like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And then it showed me nothing. And it was like, everything's offline. I was like, oh, how could you do this to me? So this whole time I thought it wasn't working. Okay, that makes me very happy. I'm very happy that we're good to go on that end. I just want to check one more thing to make sure that everything's okay and everything's fine. I'm sorry. I know technically this means we're like 10 minutes late, but I mean, can we call it fashionably late? Can we call it like something that makes me feel a little bit better? We're going to go with fashionably late. That's what we're going to go with at this time. All right, so you guys can see that makes me so happy. Cool, fantastic. So that means that this is working exactly the way it's supposed to. My joy is so much higher than I thought it would be. Great. Now that I know it's working, so I was super nervous about this whole thing. Happy Halloween, Carol. Happy Halloween, everybody. I hope you have an amazing Halloween. I hope that, so apparently Mercury retrograde started today, and for those of you who don't know what that is about the period of time that everyone claims to hate the planet. Technology doesn't really like to work. It's just like a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. So it started today. But Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be bad. Like, it doesn't have to be bad. I'd say it just gets a really bad rap because it does a little bit of shitty stuff. It's just a little bit of an asshole sometimes. Just a little. Also, I should probably talk about this right now, is that you guys are going to get the very more raw, unfiltered version of myself, who curses way more than I do in the show, mostly because, sometimes people don't really like to hear all the curse words and stuff like that, and I want to make sure that everybody always feels comfortable. But I feel like if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do this, I need to be like, me. Like, I need to be exactly how I would normally be. So, all right, so we've got everything up. We are gonna get started now that I'm done making a fool out of myself for 10 minutes. And I also want to make sure that, so you guys can hear me, I can read the chat, which is amazing. And thank you all for joining. So let's talk about that real quick before we get into everything. So as I was saying, I've never done this before, and as far as like the podcast, so the podcast means a lot to me. And so sometimes, like, when things mean more to you, they like freak you out a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, oh shit, well, I don't really know how this is going to go and how this is going to work, and it's really, nerve-wracking, stuff like that. So I was very, very scared. I told my husband, I was like, I don't really think anybody's going to come. And he was like, well, why? And I said, because, like, when I used to stream games, that would happen, like, all the time. You get people who will come and you get people who are there, but it part of it is, like, the time of the day. Another part of it is what day it is. It's, like, unless you do it all the time and so people kind of know what to expect from you, it becomes very, you never really know what you're going to get. It's just kind of like it might work or it might not work type of thing. And so I think I made the event on Facebook, and I went in and I saw that people said they were coming, and I was like, oh my God. And then inside of me, I just kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like cried a little inside. Happy tears, not outside and like sad tears, but happy, because it really meant a lot to me. So I really appreciate you guys for coming. So I got a couple of questions, and I asked for some questions to ask on the podcast. I got one from Octoberpod, which, if you guys don't know who Octoberpod is, it is hosted by Mr. October, or Ed is also his name. He's great. He does a lot of horror stuff. I think he also like kind of puts together like little videos and stuff on YouTube, and does way more things than I would even begin to know how to do. And he's always super supportive of the podcast. So he sent in a question, and it was, have you ever gotten spooked or experienced frightening paranormal activity while recording? If so, what was your most frightening podcast recording session? I would have to say the most frightening one was the one recently with Drew from Ghost Train Podcast. Just because, so it wasn't frightening from what I was hearing. It was frightening from the similarities. And I was just like, no. So if you guys haven't heard that podcast, he came on the show. He was great. And I went on his show too. He was absolutely fantastic. But he was talking to me, and the situation going on that he experienced and his brother is experiencing is sleep paralysis and the old hag. So we kind of talked about that. We talked about that entity a little bit, and that entity in general, like when I was younger, freaked me out. I had a book of like, I don't know, I would just grab all these books of ghost stories and paranormal stuff, and I was always into it as a kid, even before like I even had a more memorable experience. And I remember that there was this one book of like 1,000 paranormal horror stories, and I wish I still had it to this day because it was such a delight. Especially because so many of the stories that were in there are stories that I hear now, and particularly one of them is the old hag. And so I was so terrified that I would never sleep on my back, ever. Like, even to this day, I just don't like to do it. It's not my thing. Because it's like the most vulnerable position you're in. If you're on a side, you can like roll over. you know, if you're on your stomach. I mean, that one's kind of bad too, but like at least like your internal organs are a little bit more protected by your spine. But on the back, man, no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And so that was always my concern. So he tells me this whole thing, and one of the most common things in sleep paralysis is that you'll see like a darkened figure, and you'll see monsters and stuff like that, or you'll see her. And there are so many different like stories out there about how terrifying she can be and how she just completely like messes up people's lives. And as I'm talking to him and listening to him talk to me about what's going on and what he's had experienced and everything, I'm hearing noises in the background of my house. And I am sitting there and I'm like, oh, okay, noises. Okay. Now, again, I live in a forest. I mean, it's not like a big forest. It's just, there's a lot of trees. There's a lot of, natural forestry around us. I have animals that like to creep through my backyard. That's just where I live. I live in the middle of frog and bird, nation. And so I'm used to noises, but these were different. And I kept feeling like the entity that was making them was an old woman. And I'm in the middle of talking about the old hag with this guy, and I'm just like, if that fucking bitch comes over here, I'm gonna whoop her ass. We will throw down. Like, we will throw down. There's no way she's staying in this house. I'm like quietly like beginning to actually get a little freaked out, which is normally not like me, but it was just the fact of, I know all those stories, and I know how it's very easy for her to, like, once you get rid of her, to creep back into her life. And so that's like one that I honestly would wish that no one can deal with. And you can get rid of her. It's not that you can't, but like, you have to do more work on yourself. Like, it's one of those entities that, like, when they latch onto you, they dig deeply. And you have to do more work on yourself than anyone, like, than, a normal ghost or even a demon. Like, it's so bad. And I just didn't want that experience. Turns out it was an ancestral spirit, which was a great, 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 great grandmother of mine. But I didn't know this at the time. And she was being very demanding. And I was like, no. And so it was just like a bunch of like mixed crossed wires. And so I literally thought I was going to have to like throw down with this entity. And I was like, oh, wait. Oh, you're here to help. Okay, cool. So that was the most frightening experience I've had. And I still have all those noises, and so does he. And we are still like, we don't understand where they came from, because there weren't any noises outside besides the frogs thumping on the window, and there was nothing else. So let's see. Okay, I might say your name incredibly incorrectly. I'm so sorry, but Lachia? If that's wrong, like, spell it out for me phonetically, and I promise you I will get it right. So she says in the chat, I know a medium who didn't believe in sleep paralysis. She thinks the person just isn't getting enough sleep or is stressed out. And I can agree to that to a point. I mean, if you're not getting enough sleep, and that is actually one of like the more psychological thoughts behind it, is that if you're not getting enough sleep, it will create this problem where you kind of, I mean, the thought process behind sleep paralysis is that you are in a state of being stuck between being awake and being asleep, and plenty of things can affect that. And so can stress. So I can get that, but like, I could never like not believe in sleep paralysis, especially because like those people go through so much. Like, most of the time they go to a psychologist, and then a psychologist sometimes will turn around and tell you, and not all of them, like, it's not against like all psychologists or anything like that. Like, some of them, they will believe you, and they will work off of, this is what you're experiencing, and so I will believe you, and also attempt to help you in the best of my medical experience possible. But it's difficult if anybody calls you crazy or makes you feel that way, even a slighted way. And I mean, we all have our beliefs, so if that's how she feels, that's how she feels. But I can't feel that way. Oh, Lychia. Okay, we're gonna go with that. I think based on how you said it, how you spelled it out phonetically. I think that might be right. And that's okay. Don't worry. I know you guys are at work. I know you guys are at lunch. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you for coming. Don't worry about that at all. Oh, you experienced sleep paralysis. Oh my. I'm so sorry. I hope you don't see her or anything. That would be lovely if you don't. I mean, it's scary enough when you're like, you can't move. I hope you don't see anything. That's horrible. And Carol says that, oh, you've had it happen too. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. And hi, Karen. Thank you so much for joining. Hi. I appreciate you. Everybody, Kieran was also on the podcast. He has his own podcast, Paranormal Paradigm, and they are awesome. Awesome, awesome folks. Please check them out. They do an amazing job. They also have a Facebook group, of which I'm a part of, and I really much enjoy because they post like really awesome things. And now Carol also asked a question, and it was, what is the scariest thing that has ever happened to you? I mean, I normally always go with the two situations of the cat statue and the lovely little mass that destroyed my closet while I was in it. Those are the two I always end up going with because I would say part of fear is like not knowing. Like you don't know what's going on. You have no idea. And so you're sitting there and you're like, oh, okay. All right. So like, what is happening? And so I think that like really creates a fear to an experience, especially if you don't know what's going on. But I would say if I had to go with an experience that scared me, but I knew what was going on, it would probably be the, so I think I told this, I told this story before, but I had a friend who she kept messing with things in the paranormal, and which is why I'm such an advocate of like, don't mess with things in the paranormal if you don't know what's going on. Like, educate yourself and understand that like, as good and as awesome and as honest as the paranormal is as evil and as bad and as gray as the paranormal can be. Like, you can get both sides of that spectrum very easily, especially right now. Like, this is a perfect time for all of the little ghosties to be like, hey, which is also why I'm doing this at 1 o'clock and not at 5. I'm not going to do it at 5 or 6 or 8, 9, no, not going to do that. I'm sure that I'm going to have more than enough experiences tonight as I'm sitting here in my lovely house. And I'm actually really happy that I'm home because like I'm probably more protected in my house than I am anywhere else. But she just kept messing with stuff and she thought it was fun. And she thought it was fun and games. She ended up with like a ghost. I did a long distance cleansing for her, got it away from her, she was fine. And then like 2 weeks later, she's like, yeah, I need your help again. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, we talked about this. I thought like, I told you need to stop messing with this stuff because you clearly do not know what you're doing. Like, in all my time, I've only ever summoned something I didn't mean to summon once. Like, and even then I made it go away. It wasn't a big deal. Like, no, don't do that. And so I went to go help her and come to find out it was a demon. Like, she summoned a demon. She promised it a whole bunch of stuff. Didn't, live up to her end of the deal. And so the demon was pissed and was like, no, like, you either give me what you want or I'm going to terrify you until you do. And so when I came sort of like back to because it's more almost like creating like a spiritual connection in that place to deal with it. And so when I sort of ended the spiritual connection to come back, it followed me back to my house. And that freaked me out because when I talked to her, she told me it was a ghost. I didn't necessarily think it really was, but I also like thought I knew her well enough to know she wouldn't lie to me. And so whole bad judgment on my part, but she did. And so it came back to me and I come back and, in my body and look up and there's this huge shadow on the wall. And there was a moment of terror because I sort of saw myself as like the protector of the household. And like to any of these people who like asked me to help them, I would protect them too. And so now all of a sudden I'm bringing something back into the household. And so there's like guilt and terror and confusion and also like a lot of anger. I was so mad. So we dealt with it, but I would say like as far as like looking at a time when I actually knew what I was doing and then it just happened to turn out this way, I'd say that's actually like one of the scarier experiences I had. I mean, we dealt with it and it was fine and everything was okay, but I was really, I had a lot of emotions for that experience. Let's see, we have some stuff. Ah, Lychia, I hope you're having a good lunch. You know how I feel about food. I actually just had breakfast not too long ago. So she says, I've had sleep paralysis where I don't see anything. That's good. Oh, and then there was a particular time I saw a demon-looking thing with horns. Not so good. I told it to leave, and he just laughed at me and said, no. Sounds about right. As for Archangel Michael, very good guy to help, and that thing took off. Yeah. So slight segue, but like I know that I try not to talk about religion a lot on the show. But so the thing with religion is like if you have a particular religious practice, you can call on that deity, and a lot of times they will help you. Like, I know that some people are like, well, they've got too many things going on, they're not going to really do it. But, like, you get to, like, this certain area where your brain switches to that. And when you do that, like, you're trying to connect to something. And it goes beyond that like everyday connection that you try and attempt to make for material well-being or health reasons or whatever else. You go to something else, to something deeper. And when you can like kind of come into that like ability and that power, you will end up connecting with something else that may help you. And Archangel Michael, great guy, he will totally help you. He's got no problem with it. Lives for that shit. So I'm very happy that you called on him. Oh, and I'm sorry that your medium friend doesn't believe you, but I am very, I would clap, but I think it's going to sound horrible on this audio. I applaud you for still believing in what you experienced and validating your experience and being able to not let anyone take that away from you just because they can't believe you. I really like, you are awesome. Thank you for still validating your experience, and I believe you. So Haunted Happenstance, which is Jennifer, she's amazing. She also has a Facebook group. She does an audio drama, which is based on ghosties, which some people may not like audio dramas or like that it's written, but she is interested in that because she's had so many things happen to her. So I would say, even if that's kind of maybe not your thing, give it a shot because she does her research. She is very interested in the topic, and she's an amazing writer, so give her a shot. So she said, and also, Jennifer, if you hear this, Carol Phillips loves you, and Carol's awesome. So, just so you know, you have additional fans in here. She said, what has been the most unexpected thing you've gained through your podcasting experience? So when I read this question, I struggled to not write her back my answer right away because it hit me like a ton of bricks and I wasn't expecting it. It was relief. I had not expected to get any sort of therapy. Really? Someone has to mow the lawn now. Really? Ugh, people. All right, let's try this again. So, I hadn't expected to receive any sort of relief from doing the podcast at all. I just sort of figured I would share a couple of my stories, and then that would, like, be it. And then everybody else would kind of be like, oh, this girl knows, like, what she's talking about, or she can sympathize with us, and we'll send her stories, and that was it. That's not what happened. This podcast grew in a completely different way than I ever expected it to. I did not think that's how it was going to be at all. I didn't think we would be here where we are today at all. And so I've shared so much of myself and so much of my stories and my abilities and the things that come to me and all that stuff. Like, I've shared so much of it that it's almost been kind of like a therapy for me that I wasn't expecting. And so I've now actually, like, some people at work actually ask me, like, hey, so you said you had a podcast, right? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, oh, so what is it? And I remember the first time somebody asked me that, it freaked me out. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, no, no, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for someone who sees me every day to hear all my stories and to hear so much. It's different talking to a stranger than talking to someone who can see you, who can, I mean, it's my job. You know, it's my livelihood. Like, what if, like, somebody heard I do this podcast, thinks I'm a crazy person, and, like, turns around and judges me for that, and I'm not at my job anymore? Like, I'd love to say those things don't happen, but they can. And so, now, though, when somebody asks me that, I'm like, yeah, here you go. I was like, I hope you like it. Whether you believe in the stories or not, doesn't matter. I hope you like it. That's it. I work apparently in a place of people who are actually, like, more okay with the subject than I would have thought they would be. Have no problem talking about it, sharing about it. Some people even, like, go to it on Halloween, or, like, you know, haunted locations or a haunted bar or a haunted tour or something. And I guess this just has made me just feel relieved. Like, I feel like I have this place that I can open up on in a way that I don't think I've ever been able to open up with anybody on. So that's it. All right. So now that the question and answer portion, because again, as I say in the About Us, I don't know how to keep the story short, has taken, like 20 minutes. We're going to go into a topic that Marie Sterling sent over to me to have on the 50th episode. I decided to have it on this, and it is called Devil's Footprints. Now, I believe she heard about this in a book and thought it was really creepy, and it stuck with her. And so I had never heard about it, but I looked it up. And I pulled most of the information from Wikipedia, which I tend to like to get other sources, but every time I tried, like, I couldn't. I typically rewrite everything that I see on there anyway, so it doesn't sound like I'm, like, copying everything that they say. But, like, anytime, like, I tried to do that or anything, like, it wouldn't even let me, like, touch anything on the page. And I was like, okay, cool. So we're just going to leave this at Wikipedia as my reference, and that'll be it. So this is a phenomenon that occurred during February in 1855 around Estuary in East and South Devon, England. So apparently what happened was there was a heavy snowfall, and then these trails of hoof-like marks appeared overnight in the snow, covering a total distance between 40 to 100 miles. And I do actually have this picture, so hold on a second here. Alright, so this is the picture of it, and I'm also going to move this one over here so you guys can see it. Hold on one second. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see the chain in the picture, but this is a picture of the hoofs, and they sort of look like horseshoes, but what's so strange about them is that it's only one set of horseshoes. Like, so when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's a horseshoe. That's what it is. Okay, cool. That makes sense to me. But then I looked at it and I was like, well, wait, where's the second pair of hoof prints? There should be 2. Or there should be actually like 4. But they're not there. It's just the one. So it looks like people basically started calling them the tracks of Satan, because of the cloven hoof. And so the full story is on the night of February 8th to the 9th at 1855. after the heavy snowfall, these marks appeared, and they measured about 4 inches long, 3 inches across, and between 8 to 16 inches apart. They were basically in a single file, just like the picture shows. And they were reported for more than 30 locations across Devon and a couple in Dorset. It was estimated the total distance of the tracks amounted to between 40 to 100 miles, 60 to 160 kilometers. So if that's not enough, because, I mean, animals can, let's be real, animals can cross large amounts of distances, but I don't feel like they can do that much in one night. I mean, dogs can cross 20, 30, 40 miles in a night. So, it's fine. But then it goes on to say houses, rivers, haystacks, and other obstacles were traveled straight over. And the footprints appeared on the tops of snow-covered roofs. Now, here's the thing. Dogs are crazy sometimes. They'll do weird stuff. They won't do that. And, I mean, unless it was literally... Santa was late that year and brought his reindeer down, and apparently the whole, story of Rudolph is wrong. He didn't have a glowing nose. He was missing, I don't know, the rest of his legs but one. I don't understand how the fuck it got on the top of the the top of the roof. Oh, Kieran has heard the story too, and Marie says that it's stories from a book called 22 Strange but True Amazing Stories. And Kieran said, I remember the story from a book I used to read as a child. I was always fascinated with how prints were found on a roof, as if the thing had leapt to the roof. And so here's my other thing too, is I know, so I have a bunch of pine trees, and I mean, these pine trees are tall as hell. If they fell over ever, they do some serious damage. They are humongous. They're at least 3-4 stories high. And every day, I get a pine cone or 5 drop down on my roof. Every single day and night. And I know what the boom sounds like. And that is a pine cone falling on my roof and then rolling off. These people had to have woken up in the middle of the night and been oh, golly, I wonder what the hell that was on top of the roof. I'm sorry, it had to be something. Oh, and Marie says if she remembers correctly, the prints went through walls and stuff. Oh, wait. Yes. So snow-covered roofs and high walls, which lay in the footprints' paths, as well as leading up to exiting various drain pipes as small as 4 inches in diameter. So can it shrink? I don't know. I don't know what it can do. This is very interesting. So I'm going to show another picture here that I have of, if I can find it, of I think it's a picture somebody just drew that, they wanted to freak somebody out with. And when I saw it, they definitely freaked me out with it. Hold on, I've got to resize it a little bit for you, because it got really big. And it's already terrifying enough in its small form. I don't need it to be in its big form. Okay, hold on. We're just going to make a new one so that you guys can see it. Okay. Alright, so I don't know if you guys can see this, but it basically looks like a lion with 5 legs and hoofs on the end of each one, like a horse. But there's no body. There's just 5 legs. This is basically like a spider demon with a lion's face. It's very strange. I don't know who drew this, or why they drew it, or why it was so easy to find on the internet. But alas, somebody did. So this is one of the pictures that somebody put with the article. And to continue, it says there's not a lot of direct evidence of the phenomenon, which I wouldn't really expect there to be that much because it was snow. So if there's a heavy snowfall and they had another one, there goes all your evidence. The only known documents were found after the publication during 1950 of an article in the Transactions of the Devonshire Association asking for further information about the event. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Marie says, what in the ever-loving fuck is that? And if you could see the picture, you would know why she says that. The fucking picture is creepy as hell. And that is the picture that I guess somebody put on with this, like, as to be like, oh, this is what it is. I would hope that, look, the devil gets a bad enough rap. Don't take his body away from him, man. That's fucked up. He can have the hubs, but don't take the body away. And also, here's the other thing, too. As if it was Satan. Why would Satan take his time to travel 40 to 100 miles? Like, doesn't he have better shit to do? Souls to get, people to scare, people to... I mean, he's terrifying people, great. But then he left almost no evidence. So is he terrifying people and then hoping that people who, like, you know, share the story get called crazy, and so their sanity is now, like, you know... they get thrown into this whole chaotic spiral? I don't know. But my point is, like, I don't really feel like it's the track marks of Satan. Just, nah. I feel like if he's going to terrify people, he'd do more than that. That just seems so easy. Now, if it's like a random, like, I don't know, maybe it's like a random, like, cryptid that's, I think that's the right term, that has never been found or something. Like, it could be that. I don't know. I mean, there's cryptids all over the world and strange beasts and animals that people don't understand and or they think aren't real or are documented and drawn. That's Marie says that's hell's pinwheel right there. I agree. Let's see what else. So they got some collection of papers that belonged to this one guy who was a vicar of the... I'm not going to say that word. That word sounds too close to another word, so we're just going to call him Sir St. George and leave it at that. During the 1850s. So, it basically sort of seems like they kind of, you know, it's a creepy story, but that they kind of, like, threw it away a little because they couldn't find any evidence of it. Which sucks, but, I mean... I get it in a strange way, but at the same time, this clearly, like, that's a lot of road to cover. Jennifer's back. Welcome back. Yeah, so it's a lot of room to cover. So here are the awkward things that people were saying that they think it was caused from. A balloon. Some people thought it came from a balloon. Interesting. Okay, an experimental balloon, which apparently had mysterious tracks, or had left mysterious tracks. They don't really go into what exactly these tracks were, but I also don't think a balloon can float in a single file line unless possessed by Satan. Maybe Satan let one of his, like, good friends out. He got a little drunk, lost half his body in some bet, and then, like, started prancing around, was pissed off. Satan thought it was funny as hell, climbed in the balloon, and then just had the balloon fucking follow him. I don't know. This just seems very stupid to me. Hopping mice. Okay. So, here's the thing, is so when I looked up on this whole phenomenon and what happened, there was a picture of the mouse that they thought could have caused it. I could squeeze that motherfucker in my hand. How the hell do you... Like, these tracks seem... I mean, they said... Hold on. Let's go back to what they said the size was. So, it was 4 inches long, 3 inches across, between 8 to 16 inches apart. A mouse can't do that. Like, and if it would have made one track, you would have seen the other track. Like, because I mean, you can't, I mean, maybe if it hopped like that far, but do mice hop in a single line? I don't think so. I think they hop to go find food and then they veer off to go get their food. Like, that makes no sense. And if it was hopping mice, I would think back in that time, there are tons of hopping mice, and so said hopping mice would be everywhere, and people would have been used to this by now. But okay, whatever. Sure. So then the other one is a kangaroo. Okay? I could almost get behind this, except kangaroos have 2 legs. So, do kangaroos now play hopscotch? Who knows? Okay. And the last one was badgers. Let me explain something to you. I have probably seen a badger like twice in my life. And I don't think that they're like, I'm pretty sure they're going to be like, fuck that shit. I'm not going to terrify people. I'm just going to go like do my shit over here. Peace. Like, I don't really like badgers don't give off that type of energy that they care enough to terrify people this way and walk in a single line. Like, if you're going to give me some sort of like way to totally say this is like complete and utter bullshit, please give me an actual, like come up with something good. Don't give me like this bullshit, please. I mean, but so Kieran said something about like Devon is renowned for kangaroos, but like here's my thing is like, you know, yeah, of course, kangaroos all over the place. Kangaroos just come hopping along on top of your roof. Kangaroos love the snow. And kangaroos love England. Of course they do. Of course. Oh, yes, so many. So many. Also, hello everybody else who joined. We have Phil Sams, who has his own podcast, Ghost in the Night. Phil, I think I've been on his show like 3 times. He's been on my show, I think twice. I think we split the episode into 2. He is awesome. Marlena, thank you for joining. Melissa has also submitted plenty of stories on the show. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you. All right, so I'm going to get a quick gulp of water because I'm going to read some stories, and I know from experience that when I don't do this, I end up somehow forgetting how to read. So, one moment. So, I have just discovered, I'm sorry guys, I feel like such an idiot sometimes when it comes to shit like this, because I actually know software very well, but when it comes to like social media, no. So I have discovered that Facebook is stupid, and it does this thing where if you post, I mean, I guess it makes sense to a point, but if you post a stream onto your Facebook group and your Facebook page, it doesn't link those two together, which would make sense, except it's the exact same link. Nothing changed, it's the same one. So, I would also like to say hello to Mark Phillips. Thank you! Tracy Tower, thank you too. Tracy says, kind of going back to the beginning, but the last time that she went to a psychologist, they recommended a shaman. Your psychologist? For that, I applaud them very much so. Mark says the picture's very interesting. Tracy said something about if you run forward and not to the side, it should be okay-ish. And Mark said to stay hydrated, which my voice sounds better, so I did. Also, folks, I didn't talk about, oh, Mark is trying to, you know what? I think the problem is that he's not in the group. Hold on. Let me see if I can get him in here really quick. One second. Because you guys, if you guys are gonna be like totally awesome and watch this, you should really be in here. Wait, hold on. How do I do this? Meanwhile. Alright, so if I come down into the group, can I invite these awesome folks? I would like to invite them. Will you let me invite them? No, you will not. Okay, can you tell him to try and join the group, and then it should let him in? I mean, it's on the page too, so he can stay where he is if he wants, but if he also wants, he can join the group, and then that way he can get everybody at the same time. Because I think there's more people who are in the group than there are on the page. Same thing to you, Tracy. If you're still here, if you request to join the group, you'll be in, I think there's like 10 people on or something in the group, and then only 2 on the page. So if you guys want to kind of like see the rest of the comments and everything too, go to where it says the Haunted Ride group, and you can join in there. And I'm also going to post it too in there and see if that works. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so story time. All these stories, I went on Reddit. My trusty friend, also sometimes a little bit of an asshole, but mostly trusty. And I managed to ask in one of the paranormal groups that allowed it, if anybody had any stories, because I have this live show coming on today and wanted to see if anybody would mind if I just share the story. And I got an insane amount of responses that I was not expecting. So, here's what we get. We got the first one called DreadBecomesYou, and the title is Silent No More. Okay. So it says, this is the first time I am putting my paranormal experience to text. The following story took place while I attended an all-male military boarding school in 2004. At age 14, my parents sent me to a military school in Virginia for bad behavior. Cadets stayed at the school throughout the school year, except for a few weekend and holiday leaves. The school opened in 1898. Many buildings on the campus have been around for over 100 years, like the barracks I slept in. Those several buildings throughout the years had been burned down, unlike on one such occurrence when an accidental fire burnt down the Delta Company barracks in 1924. The academic building was built around 1915. It was 2 stories tall, with the second floor being full of classrooms. But my experience took place on the first floor, which featured a handful of offices for facility officers, a computer lab, and a large room that had 2 large swinging doors that opened into a study hall meant to accommodate roughly 75 students at any time. I'm going to be honest with you. While this place sounds incredibly haunted, based on dates, which sounds very judgmental of me, but he is saying he had an experience there, so you know what, I'm going to go with it's probably haunted. But I don't know, when I try to like picture this place in my mind, I actually think that like if it's cleaned up and everything, it could be really pretty. Like it'd actually be like really, really pretty. And I wonder what it used to be before a military school. One aspect of my new life as a cadet was called guard duty. Every day, 3 cadets were randomly selected to be on guard duty. Guards had to wake up an hour earlier than everyone else at 5 a.m. You'd wake up, get dressed in uniform, and meet the other 2 guards at the academic hall. No worries. Thanks, Karen, for joining. I appreciate it. Once the guards got to the building, they were supposed to do a walkthrough on both floors to make sure nothing was out of place and check that nobody was inside. After the walkthrough, you'd sit by the phone in the first floor hallway and take calls from anyone happening to call in. I'd been at the boarding school for a few months when I was assigned my first guard duty. The first morning, I woke up early and got dressed as quietly as possible to avoid waking my roommate. It was pouring outside, so I put on my rain jacket on top of my uniform and walked through the dark to the academic building. Usually, guards would meet up outside the building, but since it was raining hard, I decided to just go inside by myself. I waited inside the dark building for the other guards to show up. After about 10 minutes, I started to get worried because they still had not shown up, and I was concerned that the facility officer might come early and see that I had not done my job. So I walked up the stairs and checked every classroom and the creepy bathroom that looked like it had been updated since the 1940s. Nothing was out of place, so I made my way downstairs to check the offices, study hall, and other rooms. I thoroughly opened every door and walked through every room. Once again, nothing was out of place and no one was inside. Everything seemed in good order in the dark building, so I sat down in the hallway next to the phone. After a few minutes, I felt the weirdest sensation. The building had begun to shake softly. I could feel the vibrations in my body and see the small table next to me shake ever so much. I sat there completely frightened by whatever was occurring in front of my eyes. The rumbling abruptly stopped a few moments later, and I took a big sigh of relief. But then I started hearing noises from the study hall room, the doors to which were only 10 feet away from me. It started off as barely legible, and I couldn't tell what I was hearing from the room, though it seemed like it was getting louder, and soon I started to hear what sounded like whispering. It kept getting louder and louder until I could hear what sounded like dozens and dozens of voices inside the room. I told you guys this place was fucking haunted. After a few moments, I could hear what they were saying, but it was as if many conversations were taking place all at once in a chaotic sense. I could hear laughter and comments like, "Pass me the answers to the math homework." This is a room that I had been in a short while ago, and there was no other entrance into it other than the swinging doors I was sitting near. It had been completely empty short of all the desk and other items throughout the room, but now I was hearing what I can only describe as a room full of voices. I sat there paralyzed with fear while hearing all of this. Then I began to also hear a tapping noise coming from the room. It sounded almost as if someone was hitting a ruler against a desk. The tapping sound began to move around the room while all the voices continued. Suddenly the tapping stopped, but what was so much worse, I heard something scream, "Sit down and shut up, it's study time." It was incredibly loud and unmistakable, like an instructor who was in there screaming at a room full of cadets. As soon as whomever or whatever finished screaming, the study hall fell completely silent. I sat in my chair, wanting to bolt out of the room, but I was too scared to move. Plus, I'd have to pass by the doorway to the study hall to get out of the building. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I was breathing incredibly hard. I was terrified that whatever was in that room would realize that I was there. Then the building softly began to shake again, almost as if whatever was taking place was coming to an end. A few minutes passed as I sat there in my chair in silence. I couldn't hear anything anymore coming from the study hall, and I began to feel slightly better about circumstances, though I still had not built up the nerves to make a run for it. But then the building started to shake again, and I could hear the roller tapping noise start up again in the room. This time it was clear that it was making its way to the door that led to me. It was moving fast and growing louder. It had almost gotten to the swinging doors. I sprang up without thinking. My survival instincts kicked in, and I sprinted out of the building as fast as I had ever run before. Now outside, I made my way through the dark back to my barracks. Just as I was getting near the barracks, one of the guards was sleepily walking out of the barracks. The other students were all still fast asleep. I calmed my nerves and walked up to him. He hadn't seen me running in the rain, and for some reason I didn't want to tell him what I had experienced. I walked with him back to the academic building as he explained how he had overslept. We walked inside, and he made a beeline to the study hall room, opened the swinging doors, walked in, and tossed his backpack onto his assigned desk. I followed him inside apprehensively. The room was still empty. Okay. So that actually, it's really funny. I don't think I've ever had the experience of like a haunting on repeat, but that's what it sounded like to me. I think that it was definitely like a haunting on repeat. What I find actually, though, almost more strange than that is if there's supposed to be 3 people, but he's the only one who showed up, and if this one person said he overslept, I'd assume the other person did. So why was he the only person who woke up on time? Like, I almost felt like it was like meant for him to hear. But that had to be terrifying, because like you go through the whole thing and then like you hear all these noises, and that sounds terrifying. So yeah, I think it was just residual energy that left to a recording in the room. And I didn't really realize at first when I read it that they still use that room for instructions right now. So I do think that maybe just like, you know, all the leftover energy just contributed to the recording. And so that's just all it was just a contribute to the recording that built up and built up and built up. And I think that's also why the building would shake. I think that was like a, you know, so much energy is now here. So let's, you know, release. And then it shook to stop, like it had finished and then it started again. But yeah, that's I've never actually gotten a experience that seemed like a recording or something that was on loop, and I actually have never had one happen to me either. But that's what it sounds like, and it's still, I mean, even if it's on loop, it's still creepy as hell. I also think that everybody who was in the live on the page is now in the group. So you guys should be able just to like click to join the event, hopefully, and be there. And also, this reminds me that I had a slideshow that I made so that you guys could like have something to look at. And then I forgot to play it. So one moment. We're going to get rid of that creepy ass picture. All right. So let's do the slideshow. Okay. Although, okay. It looks like it's, well, hold on. Somehow everything I've done has gotten out of the way it was supposed to. So we're going to fix that real quick. That way you guys can actually see the pictures instead of whatever the hell it's doing now. Okay. One second, it's just loaded that up for you. That looks so strange where it is. What are you doing? Why did you make it so big? Oh my goodness. We're gonna have to make this smaller. It looks creepy as hell right now. And also, like, I'm showing things that I'm not really showing. There we go. Okay, it's a bunch of different orientations and stuff, which is fine, but hopefully now it'll show everything correctly for you guys. There we go. Alright, so now you should see a slideshow. Whoop! Mark, thank you! I'm happy it worked for you. Okay, so we're going to go on to the other story that we have, now that I think we've gotten everybody in the same room too. So our next story is from Ronnie Pickles 83. And they say, this all happened in my apartment in New Britain, Connecticut. It was a small 500 square foot, one bedroom. The first thing that had happened was I had gotten home from work around 5 o'clock. It was summer, so it was still light out. And I decided to relax and take a hot bath while reading a magazine I had just gotten. When I prepared for my bath, I made sure the lights in the living room were off, and so were my bedroom lights. I double checked as I was living by myself and paying the bills by myself, so I was being cheap. Once I was in the bath and reading, I started to hear voices. I ignored it at first due to the fact that I was living in an apartment building and figured it's just the neighbors next door. But the voices over a period of 10 minutes got increasingly louder and louder. Finally, I noticed something was definitely off. I got out of the bath, and once I did, I realized the TV in the main living room was on, and the volume was also at full blast. So the voices that I was hearing was from my TV, which volume was increasing over time. I know for 100% fact that my TV was off. I never turned it on when I got home, and I also double checked before I got in the bath. What was weird was not that it turned on, but that the volume increased over a period of time. So I'm going to pause there just because that's the first experience, and I completely agree. Like, I find this always happens with TVs. It's like people are like, oh, technology, it's weird. Which technology is weird, and it does do very odd things, and sometimes, like, it's annoying as hell, and it's a pain in the ass, and I get that. I really do. But the thing is, like, look, it might be weird and all this shit, but your TV doesn't just turn on by itself and then gradually raise its volume. That's not how it works at all. So while, yes, maybe it's a little strange, that's not how it works. And so I hate when people are just like, oh, well, maybe you were just imagining it, or, you want there to be something, and so you are imagining that it's there. And it's like, no, I can guarantee that, there are some people who they want a paranormal experience to happen, and when you want one to happen, it will. But, like, not like that. Like, that's not what will happen. So they go on to say the next thing that happened, my friend was actually witness to. My friend was staying with me for a period of time and sleeping on the couch. She's helped out by purchasing paper towels, toilet paper, etc. What happened was she had purchased a big bundle of toilet paper for the apartment, but the only space I had to store it was underneath the bathroom sink. So the remainder of the package stayed underneath the living room table. When the package only had one roll left, she had placed it on the living room table. Later that day, she went to grab that one roll, and it was gone. She swore to me up and down that there was one roll left on the table, etc., etc. We both looked, never found it. So we decided that we were misguided, and we left to go shopping. But when we both returned, there was one roll in the middle of the coffee table. That was a little weird because when we left, there was definitely nothing on the table, yet when we returned, there it was. We're gonna pause there again to be like, I don't like that shit. When you can move my shit, I don't like it. Nope. Just gonna go with a no. The last thing that happened in the apartment was probably the most apparently I can't talk now, traumatizing to me. I had woken up one morning around 5:30, so light was just starting to come up, so I could kind of see in the apartment. I was just laying in bed, kind of wondering why I was woken up, and I happened to roll over and look at the end of my bed, which I can see straight through my bedroom door into the living room. That is when I saw a man standing between my coffee table and my couch. It was almost like they were sitting there, and when they heard me stir, they stood up. At first I wasn't alarmed because I thought it was my boyfriend at the time, and I thought maybe he had come over. But then once I really woke up, I realized I had deadbolted my door, and he did not have the deadbolt key. When I realized it wasn't him, I became terrified, believing someone had broken in, and that is why I was woken up, maybe due to me hearing them. I was so terrified that I stared at the outline of this man, and then I shut my eyes and counted to 60. When I opened them back up, he was still there. I could still see the outline of my huge picture on my wall, except for where he stood. I could see his shoulders and his head and his body, everything. At this point, I had no idea what to do. My phone was charging in the kitchen. I was in bed alone, so all I could do was lay there wide awake, pretending that I was still sleeping, hoping he would just go. After about 30 minutes, it started to get more light, and I had not heard anything. I finally looked again, and he was gone, so I got all the courage I could and ran into the living room, and nothing, not a damn thing. The deadbolt was still locked, my door was still locked, nothing was touched, nothing was disturbed. This really bothered me because I was wide awake. I closed my eyes for 60 seconds, opened them, and I still saw him. I could make out his whole body. I truly thought I was being robbed, and that stuck with me for a long time because that obviously was not the case. The only kicker was I found out about 2 years later that the apartment right next to mine had a tenant who had passed away. The tenant was an elderly gentleman who lived alone. He had died from complications from a surgery, and he wasn't found for a few days due to him living alone. I never felt scared in that apartment any other time. I only felt good energy, so I have no idea what was going on there, but that's my story. Yeah, it just sounds like it was haunted. It just sounds like it was haunted. I wonder why, though. Like, hi, Leanne. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. I wonder, like, why, though, her apartment? Like, if the old man died next door, I mean, he could have decided to come over just to be like, hey, I'm gonna watch out for you. But then, why steal her toilet paper? Why turn the TV on so loud? Why do all of those things? None of those make sense. Wait, Marie and Leanne, do you two know each other? Because you seem like you know. Do you two know each other? So this is hilarious to me. But yeah, I don't understand, like, I don't really know if the old man has any correlation to the haunting in the apartment. Because none of it was like hurtful or harmful. It was just scary. And I feel like it would be easier to let someone know that you're there without, I don't know, making them leave. Like, listen, like, if you make me leave my house because I thought I bought something and I can't find it, and I go all the way to the store. Let me bring this back. I search for it for at least a solid, like, 5 to 10 minutes. Then I get dressed. Then I get in my car. Then I drive to the store. Then I purchase the thing, which is already going to take another 10 minutes. Then I come back home, and now it's there? Oh, no, you and me have to fight now. I'm done. Fuck that shit. No. Nope. And a no. No. You don't make me leave my house. I don't like that. No. Also, that's so cute. I love that you two know each other. That is so cute that you're both here. This is awesome. Like, I have a huge smile on my face right now from this. I just think it's adorable. Alright, so our next story is from... I love this username. It's called PissOnUserNames. So, I think somebody has told me before what TL ;DR means. But, again, I don't like social media typically. I don't like acronyms or abbreviations at all. And I don't understand why is a semicolon involved? The fuck? Who comes up with this shit? Like, really? I remember, like, back when I was playing a game, I used to play Shire for, like, the longest time. And so, actually, I'm going to be downloading a private server to start playing it again because I miss playing the game. And I remember, like, there was somebody who made their name Leroy Jenkins. And so people in the middle of PvP would scream out, Leroy! And I was just like, I turned to my husband, I was like, honey, what the fuck does that mean? Like, why is someone so excited about this? And so what I equally got even more excited about was everybody was so excited about this name that I was very excited when I killed him in PvP. And I was like, that's how I feel about Leroy. So, no, I don't like abbreviations. I don't like acronyms. I don't get them. I don't understand them. It's not my thing. Marie, what have I told you about being violent and holding guns up to people's heads and making them do things? Tisk. That's all I can say. I am truly and utterly ashamed right now that you would hold a gun up to somebody's head to make them listen to this podcast. And I mean that as saying I actually really applaud you. Thank you very much. And if you want to hold a gun up to anybody else's head, I'd appreciate it. For the podcast, though, no violence. No violence. No bloodshed, no violence, no gore. While I appreciate the ghost, please don't turn people into ghosts. Thank you very much. So, this person actually, they posted this to a couple different places. So, if anybody has had an experience close to this or has ever heard of it, like, it's actually really important to them. And that's part of why they let me share the stories, because it's so important to them to try to find someone who has had this experience. And they just haven't been able to find anybody who has. So in 2004 or 2005, I was around 14 to 15 years old. I lived in the country of Southwest Virginia. Didn't we have another story from Virginia? Damn, Virginia. You're getting so much love right now from the ghosts. Please keep them all. I don't want them down here in Florida. I'm good. I have enough. Southwest Virginia, and was a typical country boy. My mom and stepdad had recently let me start raccoon hunting. You hunt raccoons? What? Why do you? Why? Okay. Okay. By myself, and that's what I was doing that night. As the sun was setting, I took the dogs and left for our hunting grounds maybe 2 miles away on foot, same as I had done before. When I got to the spot, I turned the dogs loose and waited, but they didn't return. This was nothing out of the ordinary for a few minutes. After a half hour or so, still nothing, and that was somewhat strange. We didn't have the best coon hounds, and if they didn't find a raccoon scent, they would strike a deer or rabbit or something, but nothing happened. I began to walk around calling for them, but I didn't get any response. When I noticed a red glow from the top of the ridgeline emanating from the holler. I have no idea what that is, but okay, somebody might know what that is. Now this is place way off the road. Oh, so then they go on to explain what the holler is. This is a place way off the roads of the forest and cow pasture. No electrical power anywhere around. My first thought was that a farmer must be clearing some bush and has a fire going, so I went to investigate and check it out to make sure it wasn't a forest fire starting. As I get closer to the top of the ridge, I get a sense something is not right. I started to notice that there was no smell of smoke in the air, and the glow, it was not flickering the way a light would from fire or from flames. And even the color was not the warm orange red, but instead a bright, intense red. The best way I can describe it is how a stoplight on a dark corner casts an eerie red glow on everything, or possibly brake lights. That was the color. Except the amount of light I was seeing, it would require a lot of 4x4 vehicles lined up with the brakes on. It's possible if a field party was happening, but I heard no music or noise. I was trying to find an explanation for what it was, but I couldn't think of one. That is when I got really scared. I was carrying a 20 gauge shotgun with a bird shot, but I happened to have a few shells of buckshot and slugs. I quickly loaded a slug and held 2 buckshot shells in my hand and prepared to defend myself. I turned and left for the long way home, sneaking as quietly as possible. When I got back, I told my mom and stepdad what happened. My stepdad scolded me for leaving the dogs in the woods. I was about to say, like, what the fuck happened to the dogs? Okay. Great. So he did leave it. Let's see. Leaves dogs in the woods. He thought I got spooked and left, or was just lazy and didn't want to go after them, and he didn't believe me. The dogs, by the way, the dogs knew their way back home and would be waiting for breakfast in their doghouse. Don't worry. I went back to the holler in the daylight a day or two later, looking for any evidence of what I had seen the night before. I had looked hard, but found no burnt area from a fire, no fresh tire tracks, absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. About a week or so after this happened to me, I woke up, walked into the living room, and my stepdad jumped up and said that he had seen a red light. He had been hunting, not the same place, but close. He's standing with his light off, when suddenly, without a sound, he saw 3 bright flashes of light that lit everything around him, enough to read a newspaper. That was the last encounter we had with the red light. Part of me regrets not walking the rest of the way to see over the top of the ridge. Another part of me is happy that I didn't. Has anyone heard or experienced the bright red light like this? So then, they got a reply, actually, to this from missktahni. We're gonna go with that. And all it said was, hey, just thought I'd let you know, but my dad has experienced the same red glowing thing with his brother. It seemed to follow them through the bush here in the Northern Territory in Australia. It was after they had broken down beside the road. We still aren't sure what it was, but it wasn't a friendly spirit. I'll try to find your story and let my dad have a read to see if it behaves similarly to this one. I feel like I've never seen that, but for some reason it sounds oddly familiar to me. Like, I feel like I've heard other stories of like bright red lights in the middle of the woods, but not like, it's not a fire. It's nothing like that. I almost, this is gonna sound weird, but I almost want to say it's like one of those like the Sasquatch hunting shows where they talk about like they'll see like stuff like that, but I don't think it's that. I'm not really sure what it is. And I swear I've also seen it on a paranormal show too, where they like walked out. It was like kind of like, it might have been Paranormal State, like a long ass time ago, where they were like searching some haunted woods or some shit. And they walked by and they're like, oh, I saw these red lights over there. But like they went closer and there was nothing there. And the lights just disappeared and they didn't hear anything like go through the brush or like run away or, you know, like an animal, like nothing like that. They didn't hear anything. It just like disappeared. And they're like, the fuck is this? So I feel like I've actually heard this happen a lot of times, but I don't think that anybody knows like what it is. So if you guys have ever heard it happen, or you ever hear somebody who has, please let this person know, because I'd really like to know. Okay. All right, so our next story is... Also, I love how this is like magically made it to like 2:21. Remember when I was like, oh, it's just gonna be an hour. No worries, just an hour. Didn't happen. Not at all. This one is from Magneto, which I would like to say is a very clever username. I like it a lot. So it says, they say that they were inspired by another post to share these stories. It reminded me of these stories I remember from when I was still with my ex. We were together for 7 years and liked to camp a lot. One of his friends had a family lot with a trailer and an awesome tiny lake to fish on. I once caught a fish smaller than my lure there. Also had a dragonfly land on me for the first time and only time my only time on the water there. These stories happened with him with me, so I have at least one person that can back them up. My ex and I saw lights in the sky once out in the middle of nowhere that were just not normal. I swear to God, if they say they were bright red lights, I swear I'm going to fall over. Not claiming aliens, but whatever it was just not something either of us had seen before. It started with two of these lights flickering between a gold... Oh, okay, well, it was gold, not red, damn it. So we got a gold, almost white in the night sky. It sounds okay, right? Well, these two particular lights were on an angle from each other. The one on the right higher than the one on the left. Not to mention, as one was starting to glow brighter than any stars we've ever seen, the other one would dim out. And I mean, it would get super bright. And the one dimming would be basically out of sight. It was like they were playing a game with each other. They just kept rotating between and suddenly bright to almost non-existent. They would also slowly switch between one being higher than the other in the sky and cycle like that. Now, it was a particularly cloudy night, leaning more to... Now, it was not a particularly cloudy night, leaning more towards clear. We were on one side of the lake, and this was happening above the tree line on the opposite side, above the black tree line. There's no light, so if the stars are out, then the lake can reflect them. Not when the clouds cover them. Well, what the hell are you saying? Hold on. Not when clouds cover them. Okay, so we're going to skip part of this. These two particular lights that we would see, they were reflecting off the water through the cloud cover while they still played this game. Okay, so to try to sum that up, because I know I've stumbled over that because I was really confused about where they were going with that for a second. The lights are at an angle. One gets brighter, one gets dimmer. So it's almost like they to me, it sounds like whatever it is almost controlled by a mechanism where, like, you know, if one is taking up all the power, the other one won't. And then they also cycled between being higher or lower, being brighter and dimmer, and swirling around. But while it wasn't like a super cloudy or super clear night, they could still see them, and they could also see it reflected in the lake. Um, Apparently they did this for a few minutes, then they started moving in sync, and eventually they ended up connecting. Interesting. Then they just shut off to my right side of the lake over to the tree line and almost non-existent again. But it looked like it joined a constellation formed in the shape of a triangle, and that was it. But the entire shape was so faint it was hard to make out. Regardless, the fuckers disappeared from where they were. Whatever they were, stars just don't act like that. But talking about this particular lake, this isn't the only weird shit that happened there. The second thing was with about 4 other people. So the second story, we were about 40 feet from the water line we stood at in the last story, closer to my ex's friend's family trailer. We were about 15 feet from that while around a fire. We were drinking no crazy drugs. I just smoke a lot of weed. To try and set up a bit of a mental picture, I sat on the part of the lake roughly 40 feet to my right. Fire's in front of me by a few feet, X's to my right, and the other people were in various positions, but only myself and my ex and one of his friends were facing the fire from that direction. Now, I'd say 100 to 150 feet behind the fire makes up an empty lot. Usually there's another family trailer there, but there wasn't one this night. After that, there's a tall tree line, and on the other side of the tree is more of the lake. Anyway, we're all shooting the shit. When above that very tree line I just described, the sky lit up orange and a quick flash of green. I don't know if I'm just an ultra noob, but I've never seen lightning light up the sky that color before. But it was also a really clear night. As this sank in, I was deciding how to explain it. The friend facing the same way says, "Holy shit, did anyone else see the sky change colors?" Only him and I caught it. This is where it gets weird. We laugh it off, the rest of the joke about us seeing things. Wasn't more than 2 minutes passed, and from that same direction we hear the laughter of 2 little girls, as clear as day. We all went silent and sat there for a good 30 seconds in silence, or more, until finally one of the guys said, "Well, that was fucking weird." The one with their backs turned that way didn't even want to turn and look. We all acknowledged it and talked a bit about what the hell it could be, and decided it's better to change the subject, aka a bunch of adults were scared to talk about the disembodied laughter of the little girls. And that was it for the night. Here's the thing about that last one. It quite literally, the middle of buttfuck, I love this person, buttfuck nowhere. In that direction, there's no one. Not even on the other side of a small lake. You can't even get cell signal there. So someone would have had to take a huge detour around us to be able to sneak up and laugh from over there. It's kind of funny, all of this happened in visible sight of the first house built in my Providence, I believe. It has signs and is classified as a heritage building. So, it sort of just sounds like they had a bunch of stuff going on there. When they were describing the lake and how, like, the lake worked and the dragonfly and all of that, like, it honestly just sounds like a really, like, majestic place. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe what they saw was a UFO. Again, we talked about a little bit when we were on the episode with Kieran that, like, sometimes people hear UFO and right away go to aliens. When a UFO, sort of like when you say something's paranormal, it doesn't automatically mean ghost. Like, there's so many different things it can be. So, like, you can call something a UFO without being like, oh, there's tiny little green men or something walking around in there. It doesn't have to correlate to the same thing. Honestly, from what they're talking about, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a UFO, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went there because, like, I mean, clearly I don't know, like, anything about that stuff or whatever, but there's this, like, saying that happens a lot when you're, like, talking in, like, the spiritual community. And they talk about how once you sort of figure out yourself and, like, find yourself, you find your tribe. And I would sort of feel like it's the same thing with places. I mean, like, the house that I live at, I'm almost positive it's built with a ley line running diagonally underneath it. Now, I don't know a lot about ley lines. I mean, I know the general, you would think they're built with a lot of spiritual energy and so on and so forth and stuff like that. but it runs like, I know there's a line that runs underneath the house and my land, and it's like diagonally, and it's purple. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous to see. But this house is like a pure space. Like, it's like, I've had people over who literally, like, I remember telling my husband, if they argue, they're out. Like, I'm not dealing with their negativity, especially not like on a holiday when we're supposed to have a meal and everything. And like, it's like all their like negativity that they normally have is like dialed down. And when you're here, it's a very like peaceful, very like motivated, inspired, creative place. It's just like high energy, and I've never really understood why until I saw that like little ley line crossing down there. And I also feel like our city's in a bubble. So for instance, like here, I've seen like a couple different ghosts, a couple different entities. I've seen nymphs. We talked about the succubus the incubus the other day. I find it I've had more experiences while I'm doing meditation, like where I will literally see the light inside of my room get brighter. And it's not like because of a change in the sky, like it's in the room and stuff like that. So I think that places do or can attract certain types of energy. And so I wouldn't be surprised if like that place, just with all like its magical influence, also attracts things that want to be around that. And thank you. I'm happy you liked the slideshow. It was all the creepy pictures that I could find. That's what it is. It's just like a whole bunch of like weird ass pictures that I've had saved over like pretty much since I started the podcast. And so it's just like, here you go. I'm going to get you something. There you go. We'll have you something that looks nice. This is much better than seeing my tired ass face earlier today. All right. So I think we're going to read. Yeah, we've only got 3 more stories, so we'll read those kind of quick. All right, so Jen San 21. Something was watching us sleep. From the title of this, I already know I'm not gonna like it. I don't like when things interrupt my sleep. No, like that's fucking rude and disrespectful. I don't like it. Let's start off by saying I hate sleeping with the door open. I feel you. Okay, so random personal bit about me. I will not sleep with my door open. I hate it. If I fall asleep with my door open, it literally feels like, you know, when people are like, you open the door to the paranormal, I feel like in my room with my door not only closed, but locked. Like, I feel like I've been like, shut that bitch down. No. Whereas if the door's open, I just feel like anything can invade my space, and I don't like that at all. I'm just like, nah, you're gonna keep your ass over there, and you're not gonna bother me while I'm asleep. So I don't like sleeping with the door open at all. I am actually like, I don't even like napping in my bedroom with the door open. I've gotten better about it because I'm like, you're fine, you're safe, like you're okay. I also have an electrical bat right next to my pillow, so no, I really am okay because I will whoop someone's ass. Like you don't have to like worry, you're okay. But I swear I hate that shit. And this person says, even if the hallway light is on, I hate it. I agree. The only exception is when my boyfriend's daughter is sleeping over. Understandable. This past Saturday, my boyfriend and I didn't have the kids because we had to work the next morning. We went to bed, and I remember closing the door. Well, around 3 to 4 a.m., I woke up and the door was open. Fuck that shit. I was terrified and could feel something staring at us. I stared back, but it wouldn't show. All I could see was black. I know it wasn't paranoia because usually if I sleep with the door open, I can ignore it and go back to sleep. This time, I couldn't. I was hiding behind our blanket and pushing up against my boyfriend because I was so scared. I was like a child. I don't remember going back to sleep, but eventually I did. I asked my boyfriend the next morning if he woke up and left the door open on accident. He said he did, but that doesn't explain what I felt watching us sleep. Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better that, like, he did, like, open the door, but the whole feeling something fucking watching you bullshit, like, no. See, I get woken up. It's not as much, and this is so with Halloween coming, and it's going to be stronger when it's dark outside, because, like, when it's light, like, strong entities can come to you when it's lighter, but when it's darker, like weaker ones can do. And with all the energy and stuff just going to be out in the world and the yard, and people do like a lot of rituals and stuff out during this time and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised, like, if I get like a little visitor. I think earlier I was talking to somebody on Monday and I got like a random, like, I interpreted a message for them for something that was meant to them, but the person couldn't figure out how to say it to them, so they said it to me, and then I turned around and I was like, hey, by the way, what about this? And they were like, this is crazy, I was just talking about that. And there was no way I would have known. So it's just like a stronger, more spiritual time. I wouldn't be surprised if something attempted to wake me up tonight. I would be surprised if I thought it was a good idea. Because, just don't fucking wake me up. No. And I agree, Marie, 110%. I don't, because, like, when you're asleep, you're so vulnerable. Like, you're so vulnerable. And that, like, little, like, that door and having it locked, like, don't get me wrong, if you really want to do, like, I'm a light sleeper, too. So if you really want to do something, like, I'm gonna hear you. And if you try to fuck with my door, I'm definitely gonna hear you. But, like, just leaving that shit open, oh, no, I don't like that. No. Nope. No. All right. So this one is from stilljusticeterrible. And it's 2 experiences with possibly the same spirit 8 years apart. Growing up, I've always loved the paranormal. My mom and I watched X-Files and Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt was my shit. That was my jam. I always try to bring it up to people and everyone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you have not lived if you don't know what Tales from the Crypt is. I loved that show. I loved it so much. They're back from when I was in 1st and 2nd grade. Though that stopped when my dad moved back in with us around the end of 4th. Right before my dad moved back in, my little brother was rummaging around in the attic. Oh, fuck. And found an old Ouija board my mom had from her 20s. Okay? This already. He brought it down and insisted we play. Though I had always been interested in the paranormal, I never really wanted to meet a ghost. I like it. And had been going to youth group at my church every week, so I was thoroughly convinced that that thing was a portal to hell. I refused to play it with him. After a whole lot of whining and begging, my mom relented and sat down on the floor with him. About 20 minutes went by as they sat Indian style on either side of the board with their fingers on the planchette, with nothing happening. When my mom gave up, she was over it. Jay, my little brother, then promptly resumed begging me. After seeing them sitting around this piece of cardboard for so long and nothing happening, oh, that ghost is shady as shit. Whatever this experience is, that ghost fucking played him like a fiddle. He was like, I'm not gonna pick up for your mom, but I'm gonna pick up for you. Oh, fuck that shit. For so long and nothing happening, it became almost comical and had really lessened the fear I had for this thing. I finally agreed if it would make him stop bothering me. We sat down, and as soon as my fingers touched the planchette, it begins to move. Of course it does. Being an older sister and knowing my mischievous little brother, I immediately smack him and accuse him of moving it, which he denies. We fight about it, eventually getting back to the board. This time, oh, well, that's also bad energy to bring to the board now. This time, both swearing that we did not move the planchette, we put our fingers back on it and it starts to move again. So going with it and secretly hoping to talk to my grandmother, who had passed not long before, I ask, who are we talking to? The planchette then moves to W and stops for about 10 seconds. Then slides down to the very bottom of the edge of the board, where in tiny writing it shows the Ouija board is copyright to a William Feud. The magnifier on the planchette then settles on the tiny writing of his name, then slides off the board completely. My brother and I both looking at each other, mouths agape. Then I start thinking, well, what kind of person would know that their name starts with W, but possibly not know how to spell it? Damn! So, okay, this person, I like this person. But, like, so far, said ghost is playing you like a fiddle. And then you start arguing with your brother in the middle of a Ouija board session. Not a good idea. And then you're questioning the ghost about how stupid is it that it can't spell its own name. I'm be honest with you. If I was a ghost, I would totally fuck you over. I would so fuck you over if you're gonna sit there and call me out like that 3 separate times. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Nope. Let's see. So then I ask, how old are you? The planchette moves to 4. Then I ask, when did you die? And the planchette moves 1854. Caught up in a moment, I ask, why did you die? And it spells out sick. At this point, I'm thoroughly freaked the fuck out, as is my brother, though he's not being as vocal about it as I am. We then tell Little Miss Spirit that we are leaving and go to goodbye, with the planchette almost on instinct. Having never used a Ouija board before, over and over, we went to goodbye. Then out of pure fear, I think, my brother closed the Ouija board in the box with the planchette still sitting atop. And after that, flat out refusing to go to the attic, he shoved it in a cubby in the bottom of our entertainment center under the TV. At this point, I'd like to mention that before using the Ouija board, my brother noticed it was very dusty, so he went and got Pledge furniture polish, and sprayed it down, making it squeaky clean, so that when the planchette did move on it, the feet would make a very eerie squeaking sound. That's lovely. Fast forward an hour or two, my brother has gone to bed. I'm sitting watching TV in the living room with my mom when she decides to turn it. About 5 to 10 minutes after Mom goes to bed, I start hearing the sound. I nearly pissed myself when I realized it's coming from the direction of TV entertainment center, and I could hear it over the TV. So I mute the television and listen. Squee, squee. I'm hearing the felt of the feet of the planchette squeaking on the Ouija board in the box in the entertainment center. This is why I tell you people not to play with the goddamn board. This is why I say it all the time. This is why. Now, as a kid who's been going to church and has God in her heart, I tried to show no fear by putting on a comedy show, turning on the volume and reclining in my chair. I set the sleep timer on the TV to turn off in 4 hours, when I would be fast asleep, and when I woke, things would be back to normal. The next thing I know, I'm waking up to an infomercial, and then I see a 30-second countdown pop up, and then the TV turns off. Rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, and to my horror, I realize I can still hear the squeaking. I get up and run like a shot into my mom's room and curl up with my mommy to sleep for the night, all while praying. Fast forward a decade or so, I am in high school. I have my first girlfriend, and I'm in my first serious lesbian relationship, when my mother's mental state begins to slip. Her condition worsens within a few months, and she went from saying that I would always have a home with her no matter what, to one day, if you're going to live with a bitch, you need to leave. Oh dear. I'm so sorry about that. On this particular day, I grabbed my toothbrush and some clothes and walked with my girlfriend to stay at a friend's house a couple blocks away. Upon getting there, I realized I'd forgotten my bag of weed, and I was stressed out so badly I had to go back and get it. It was around 11:30. I snuck back to the house. My room was an enclosed patio, so I had the back door access. As I hop the fence in the backyard and I'm approaching my door, I start to hear this child's voice, and the only way I can describe it is it sounded like it was being said right next to my ear, but from down a long hallway, and the voice is saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, help, please, mommy," over and over and over. As I got closer to my bedroom door, it got louder, and I realized it was coming from the window of my garage right next to my bedroom door. Immediately, my rational brain kicked in, and I thought it had to be my neighbor's television, or even my own mother having another episode inside. I walked around the house and looked next door to see my mother through the window talking. I should say jumping up and down, gesturing wildly. Miming was her thing at this point. Oh my goodness, to her sister who lived there. I then walked up and down my entire street looking at the houses to see who may still be up, and all the lights were off. Every house was black. Also, I realized I wasn't hearing the sound anymore. As I get back into my backyard, closer to my door, I start hearing it again. Still, "Mommy, mommy, help, please, mommy." I then run past the window into my room, grabbed what I needed, and bolted back across the yard and over that fence. I think my threshold for crazy shit that day had been hit hours ago, and I just couldn't handle to investigate further by going into that garage. As time passed and that long ago experience with the little child ghost crossed my mind, I was able to reflect on the whole situation with less emotional involvement. I can't help but wonder if it was due to my, and perhaps even my whole family's fragile state at this time, that he was somehow able to make audible contact. There were no toy battery, that is not a word. No toy battery operated or otherwise, nor a TV or radio that could have been on in the garage. The home is in Florida and was built new construction for our family. There have been no deaths in the home. I've not found much as far as researching the records of the land itself and former owners, but from what I understand, it was wooded acreage previously. I've thought about it ever since, and I'm 33 years old now and still have no rational explanation. If anyone has any thoughts or suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them. It's probably just a little ghost. I mean, the thing is, like, and this is, and I don't know, I don't know Ouija boards, but I know ghosts. And the thing is, if, like, you can attempt to end in a connection with a ghost all you want to, but the ghost doesn't have to accept that connection, depending on how strong it is. If it's a very, very strong ghost, and I mean, we saw that earlier in one of the other stories where, no, it wasn't a story, it was something that, I think it was like, earlier someone said that they told something to go away, and it basically was like, no, and it wouldn't go away until she called upon another entity to try to, like, help her to get it to go away. And so, they don't have to listen. You would expect them to listen, and we want them to listen clearly. And if it's typically like just a ghost and all they want is attention, they're going to listen. They're just going to go find somebody else. And sometimes it's the same thing with a spirit. But depending on how strong it doesn't have to. And I would agree, though, that, you know, I think Laura said it best in episode 50 when she said, when you're depressed, people don't understand sometimes that it affects your spiritual health too. And it really does. And when you listen to ghosts and you listen to spirits and you work with them and you work with entities and you meditate and you do all these things, like, your mental health, like, does play a large part in it. Because sometimes you can, I mean, I shared that story about the entity who pretended to be my spirit guide. Like, pretend, and did a really good game for it for a little bit too. And I was not in a good mental state at that period of time at all. I mean, I was not in a good mental state for a long time in my life. And so if I would have not woken up to what it was asking me and how it was acting and stuff like that, I could have potentially been in a lot of trouble. And I remember there are multiple stories I've told on here where I told a ghost no or something, and it still tried. I just was lucky that I was strong enough to, like, say no and put my foot down, and it couldn't, like, blow me back off of my word. But that's not always the case. And your mental health and how you're feeling will definitely, like, impact what's going on. But I really hate that this person had to go through all that, because it sounded like it was a really hard time. And then you bring in, like, a ghost in there too, and the whole garage thing. And I'm happy he didn't go in the garage, but, like, I'm also slightly concerned about why it wanted it to go in the garage. I just think, like, they handled the situation as best as possible, but, like, the fact that they said goodbye and it just, like, never once gave a shit, like, it just didn't care. Like, that's really fucked up. Alright, so we're going to do our last story of the day. And this is from Shelby, who I think I read a story from her before. And it says, I hurt my foot pretty bad one night. It was bad enough that the nurse sent me home from school the next day. I was relaxing on the couch watching TV, and that's, of course, when it happened. The door to the basement stairs is right next to the living room. The basement door was closed, as well as every door and window to the house. I always made sure of that when I came home alone. Next thing I know, something is running up my fucking basement stairs. Fast. Faster than running. It took multiple stairs at a time. It was heavy, but was floating from each step. It caused the whole house to shake every time it landed. This all happened over a period of about 3 seconds. During those terrifying moments, I managed to hobble over to the kitchen door to get the fuck out of my house. This creature reached the top of the basement stairs the same time I opened the door to run, or at least attempt. My instinct was to run somewhere until I realized there wasn't really anywhere for me to go. I was frozen. Was it gone? Was I about to be in the middle of a standoff with some kind of paranormal entity? I just stood there frozen halfway in my terrifying house, halfway out, halfway in, for what felt like an eternity, just listening. Once I decided I wasn't going to hurt my foot even more and run, I was overcome with bravery. I hobbled over to the basement door and put my hand on the doorknob and my ear to the door. If something was on the other side, I would have been able to hear it, but it was silent, so I mustered up all my courage and slung the damn door wide open. And nothing. That honestly did not make me feel any better, so I grabbed the biggest knife in my kitchen and searched the basement, since I knew I would not be at peace until I made sure I was alone. Of course, I found nothing, so I went back to my place on the couch and tried to stay calm until the rest of my family came home. I kept the story to myself for years. I would tell friends about it when we would all be sharing paranormal experiences, but it was not until a few weeks ago that I finally told my parents. I was surprised they actually listened to me, and they asked why I didn't say anything sooner. My answer was simple. I didn't think they'd believe me. I don't like that shit. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't really know what it means, though. I just don't like it. I mean, it could have just been like a passerby entity that was like, I'm gonna fuck with you. Could have been that. But I also, like, it's interesting to me that Shelby said, because I feel like Shelby's written in another story too. It's interesting to me that she said that she always made sure every door was closed. And I kind of want to be like, why? Don't get me wrong. As someone who just sat here and talked about how I won't sleep with my door open, it makes sense to me. But I almost wonder if, like, there was, like, a reason behind that. Because I like, not that I would ever want her to find this out, but, like, what the hell would have been behind the door had she opened it sooner? And I wonder if the reason why there was absolutely, she didn't see anything was because she was about to get out the house and the thing just wanted to scare her. But if that's the case, then for what reason? It makes no sense. Why terrify someone, but then go away when they get closer? Like, it's kind of just like the whole double footprints thing when people are saying, like, it's a double. Like, okay, well, why? Like, why just leave? Like you want, yes, of course, leave it at that. Like, you don't want anything else to happen, but, like, why? So I don't know about that one. And I wish I had something better to say about it, but the thing is, like, it's so strange. It's such a strange one. So, yeah. I think that's all the stories I have for you guys. I've actually gone an hour over the time that I told you guys I would. So I thought I would end this off kind of like how we normally end off the podcast episode. Because if everything has gone correctly, this will also be on the podcast. But the thing I learned this week is actually that I have a lot of strength. Like, I'm not used to giving myself credit. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I sit down and I go, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to give myself credit, like, right off the bat, and I won't even think about it. I don't think I'm ever really going to be one of those people. I think that there's, like, a healthy way to do it, and then there's a bad way to do it, and then there's, like, the completely non-existent way to do it. And I used to be in the non-existent way, and now I'm moving to, like, a good way. But I kind of talked about this a little bit. I'm searching for a new car, and it's very interesting, the amount of people who attempt to tell you that you're never going to get what you want. And it's like, why you gotta be such a dick? Like, you don't have to like what I say. You don't have to like what I'm doing. You don't have to agree with anything that I do in my life. But if I especially don't fucking know you, keep your fucking mouth shut. It's very simple. Like, it's super simple. If you have nothing to say, then don't say anything at all. Why do you have to like try to like put me down or put that energy out there that I'm never going to find what I want? Like, that's just stupid. And I had gotten that so many times. And so this is part of my stress, is that I have been searching for a car now for like at least a month. It's been like at least a solid good month. No. Yeah, well, we'll say it's been a month. And so we're kind of working to this like really great place about it and everything, but my phone has blown up. And I like phone calls over text messages. But I also don't typically talk to a lot of people on my phone. So then when my phone keeps ringing, like, that stresses me out. That it stresses me out because it annoys me. And I try not to get annoyed about it, but it annoys me. And actually, even today, so I'll share this real fast. I had this guy who I was looking at a particular car. I talked to him about it yesterday. I asked him one question, which was, how much did it cost for the car? That's all I wanted to know. He told me. I said, all right, thank you for the offer, but no, that's it. Okay, cool. We ended it. Didn't think I would hear from him again. Blows up my phone this morning. Which is part of why, if you looked in that Instagram thing, that's why my face looks like that, because I just got done chewing him out. When I was like, oh crap, it's time, like, I gotta go record this. And he's trying to tell me that, like, oh, you know, we can work this deal, we can do this, we can do the other, we can blah, 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 blah. And I told him, I said, you need to stop. I said, let me explain something to you right now. I said, I don't appreciate the way that you're sitting here trying to rush me on something when all I asked you for was one thing, a price. I said, do not come to me this way right now. I don't appreciate it. You need to slow down and back the fuck off. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, no, I'm not done. I said, I told you no. And when someone tells you no, you need to listen. And I, like, sincerely chewed this guy out on the phone. And what was it? I want to say earlier this week, actually. Like, I actually cried over this whole thing. I cried over just the fact that the whole, like, just how many times we had to try and everything that we were doing. And I think I was just, like, really frustrated by all the phone calls and frustrated by, I was just, like, at this huge point in frustration where I just cried. And, you know, typically, like, you would think, like, okay, well, if you're crying, that makes you weak. But there was just, like, this weird moment of clarity when I was sitting here and I was explaining to my husband why I was crying. And I was explaining to him, like, everything that's going on. And it occurred to me that, like, oh, shit. Like, I've been going through a lot with this. And I mean, like, a lot. It has been a pain in my ass. And the whole purpose of what's going on is because my car is not doing the best. So, like, that is really where the stress is coming from. Everybody else, like, you know, that's whatever. But it's the fact that, like, I worry about my car, and is it going to make it to the next day? And is it going to act right? And is it going to do these things correctly? And I'm worried about those things because it creates stress. And I'm trying to trade this car, and it's so many different moving parts. And after I did the cry, and I said, I've actually gone through a lot. This is really interesting. But then this morning, the way I handled that guy when I chewed him out, I was like, damn, Melissa. I just, like, for half a second, I actually gave myself some credit. Because normally I'd be like, it's not like, I don't know why I'm able to do this, but I will look at something and I will see like 30 different ways of how it can go and plan all of those 30 different ways out. Like, my mind does this thing and it's amazing. But I also used to be scared that I would not know how to respond correctly in situations. Just because I would know that, maybe I should have said something, I didn't say it, or, stuff like that. I should have stood up for myself and I didn't do that. But now, when I'm in that moment, I respond and I'm done and I'm good. And I don't think about it or question myself or second guess anymore. And I think that just goes to show that for once I am understanding my strength and understanding where it comes from, and like actually believing in it and having faith in it, which means that I'm believing and having faith in myself about it. And that's really amazing for me. Like, that's so amazing to me. Because I know how I was before, and I never knew how I was ever going to get to this point in my life. Like, I never did at all. And so I just feel I'm just really happy about it. So yeah, if I can give you guys anything, it would be to, if you happen to do that whole thing that I do, or I used to do as much, where you look at something and, you know, let's say you're trying to plan your day out, or you've got a meeting, or trying to plan everything out, and you're trying to like stress little details, like try to kind of like let that go a little, and like look at yourself and just be like, you know what, I've got this, because you do, and you will, and just kind of like try to have more of that faith, like convert that energy into being more of a belief and faith in yourself, because you deserve it. So I'll finish this out with some of the comments. Let me see here. Marie was talking about that she talks in her sleep. I get that, Marie. I don't talk in my sleep, but I do know that I have fought with people in my sleep. Like, I remember, like, I punched the shit out of my mother one day. like she went to give me a kiss and I punched her right in the face. So there's that. I'm so happy that you love Tales from the Crypt and you got to watch that amazing program. Did you hear that Netflix, I think Netflix said that they were going to redo it or something? I don't remember, but there was something about it on Netflix. Carol, thank you for your encouragement. Marie, thank you. I agree. Sometimes you do have to chew a motherfucker out. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you tell me no, I'm not gonna like if you tell me like I don't know, or we'll see, or you leave kind of like a little bit of like a question in it, I get it. But if I literally tell you, thank you so much for your time, but no, I don't want to move forward with the deal, have a nice day, and and we're done and we hang up, don't call me back like try to do all this shit. I told you no, fool. No means no. No means no. And when you're a child and your parent tells you no, and you still do it, and what does your parent tell you? No means no. Understand that. Cycle it back into your adult life and understand that when someone tells you no, they mean no. Because now, even if you were going to give me the most amazing deal in the world on that car, my answer to you is still no, because now you're being an asshole. And I'm not going to deal with you if you're an asshole. I've got better things to do with my time. So Marie asked if my car's not starting again. My car is, so I don't know if that was from me being a slider. I think it was more so from me being a slider, because ever since like I kind of like when I get in the car, I kind of tone that shit down a little. Lucy, which is what I call my car, has been great ever since I do that. But I still worry about like certain things with her, especially when I'm driving. Like I don't know how to explain it. The energy behind something. And I know that people are like, oh, well, physical objects can't have energy, or, inanimate objects can't have energy. And I disagree. They can. And I know how she, like, moves. I know how she rides. And in me, I know there's something wrong with the car. Like, I can feel it. Every time I even approach the car, I can feel it. I feel it when I'm driving. I feel it when I make a turn. I feel it in the car. And so, what does she drive, Christine? No. I drive a car called I call her Lucy. She's great. And I'll be in the car, and sometimes like I'll be like, motherfucker, because something will happen, and like I'll be like, this is why I don't like you, and I have to remember I'm still in the car, and I'm like, Lucy, it's not that I don't like you, I just don't like this one part of you right now. So I have a whole conversation with my car, but it just. She's starting and she's running, but I know there's something wrong, and I know I'm running out of limited time. And I think that like I don't present that when I go to a dealership and I talk to somebody about it, but that definitely creates more of like I'm not doing it out of like a desperation, but it definitely is like more of a, I really need to look at this. Like I really need to make sure that I'm on this and I'm checking everything, when I'm going through and I'm looking for a car. And so we've done the whole, you want to make sure that you pick a car you actually like. And we actually worked with this one guy, and dealerships are interesting because there was one other one I had to chew out for blowing up my phone. Like we hadn't even made I hadn't even been down there to see the car. This guy like fucking lost his mind. And I was just like, what? I was like, no. Do not call my phone again. Like, do not. I was in the middle of training somebody at work and they called my phone 4 times in like 40 minutes. Which might not sound like a lot, but I'm at work. And that was just calls. He texted me 11 fucking times. My husband doesn't text me 11 times in 40 minutes. Like, no, you don't do that shit to me. And not my phone. And so, like, I've had dealerships who've just been ridiculous. This particular one that I was working with originally, they were fine. But then they told me that they could do everything. They could do it for the price that I wanted. They gave me the right price for my car. They were going to be in my price range and all this shit. And then all of a sudden they just like flip-flopped out of nowhere. And I was just like, the fuck? Like, no. So it's just been interesting. But no, we're fine. And no, I do not drive Christine. Christine killed people. I don't kill people with my car. Christine's, damn it. Now you have me calling my car Christine. Lucy's fine. I can't with you too. Yeah, he was bad. Like, he was bad. And I told my husband too, and this is going to sound so horrible and I'll have to remember to like cut this part out of the podcast. But, I told my husband, I said, I'm going to be honest with you. Part of it is when I'm saying like, they hear it and it's that I'm a woman. Like, I'm not stupid. I hear it in your voice. I hear, like, what you're saying to me. And it's not with everybody. Like, I definitely don't feel that way with everybody. I'm not, like, sitting here trying to be, like, oh, it's just because, like, I'm a girl. No, it's not that. But I even, like, I Googled it at one point because I was just, like, it was, like, things to do when you go to see a dealership to make sure that, like, you're making the best choice. And they had some really great tips. Like, one of it was, like, they're going to try to get you to sign the deal then. But don't do it. Don't get caught up in the emotional excitement and everything that's going on around you. Go home, sleep on it. If you still feel that way afterwards, then go with it. But if you don't, then you know. So don't get caught up in like all the emotional excitement and stuff like that. But they were talking about this one particular thing and they said, a lot of times say that your significant other is at home and that they need to go over it with you. Especially, and they did put a part about it, about like, especially like if you're a woman and it's your husband. I was like, hopefully it won't really be like that. But it's been that one guy who blew up my phone and then this guy today who definitely acted like that. It was definitely like, I can just be like convinced to change my mind if you give me a good enough deal. No, if I tell you I don't want it, I don't want it. Don't try to, like, sell it to me if it's a piece of gold afterwards and think, like, I'm stupid enough to take it. That might work with other people. It doesn't work with me. So, it's just a pain in the ass, is all. But, yes. Also, Marie, what the hell does this, like, weird angel with a halo on it mean? The dog angel. What the hell does that mean? Is that, like, begging? Like, I don't understand what that means, Marie. Marie, I'm stupid when it comes to stuff like this, remember? But yeah, guys, I have kept you on here long enough. You guys have been amazing. You've been so sweet. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for going through this whole process with me and working with me and being so live in the chat and listening, and hearing the stories and participating. Mark and, who was the other? I think her name was Tracy. Mark and Tracy, thank you so much for joining the group just so that you could see the podcast or see the video and be able to interact with everybody in the chat. I appreciate it. Marie, that is not true. You are not innocent of all shenanigans. You are the fucking queen and mastermind of all shenanigans. Don't even with me right now. You need to change that little dog with the halo thing to a crown. I can't believe you. But thank you everybody so much for being here with me on the stream and for, you know, taking time out of your day. If you guys are going out today at all, or, you know, anytime, please be safe and take care. As we always say, love yourselves and love others, and especially for today and tomorrow, it does lead over until around November 3rd. So just because it's not Halloween doesn't mean you won't see a ghost. But don't let the ghost get you. Bye.